Hello and welcome to the next of our Platform Insight interview series. I'm delighted to be joined by Rob Coupland, CEO of Pulsant Data Centres. Now, I've known Rob for what feels like a million years. Neither of us.
A few years.
We've not aged a day in over
Definitely
2 decades.
Definitely not.
And the first thing I'm going to ask Rob is for you to give our viewers an overview of your fairly long trajectory in our industry and where you've come from to get to be CEO of Pulsant.
Wow. Okay. Well, where do I start? I guess my first dabblings in data centers probably go all the way back to the dot-com bust, actually. So back in my kind of telco days when I was part of Cable and Wireless, who'd been on the grand kind of global expansion, and all of a sudden we kind of had this moment where there was all these data centers that had been built and there wasn't demand there for them. So it was. So actually my first skirmish was trying to find a new home for a site that was surplus to requirements. So that was kind of it, and then so that would be early 2000s. And then I guess where the journey really began was in 2007 when I joined Telecity, which at the time was private business, big plans, and was part of the leadership team there over the next sort of 10 years or so that took that from one of the pan-European operators to taking it through IPO, scaling it up both organically and inorganically. So did sort of half a dozen M&A transactions to get us into new geographies, built sites all around Europe, and was kind of a lot of fun with really great group of people, but kind of right at the point where I guess the connected data center ecosystem around Europe was really happening. So it was with that journey through to the exit to Equinix in 10 years ago, incredibly. And after the exit, I led the carve out of the assets that were ultimately acquired by Digital Realty. Became part of the Digital Realty leadership team for a couple of years, running the European region as we brought that together. Again, sort of great opportunity to bring those kind of sort of slightly more kind of retail co-location assets together with a fantastically strong global brand. So I did that for 3 years, and that led me ultimately to join Pulsant in late 2019, so about 6 years ago. So so fascinating journey.
Well, I mean, you've got a fantastic pedigree across this industry. You've worked with some of the biggest names across our co-location sector. I think Pulsant when was Pulsant founded? What year?
We actually go all the way back to 1995.
It's been a long time there, but Pulsant has actually stayed below the radar to a certain degree compared to a Telecity or an Equinix or a Digital Realty. But over the last couple of years, it's suddenly come into the forefront again. I think it's because of you've got a very different business model. Could you talk us through that?
Yeah, and I think we've as a business, we have been around for 30 years, and great business that has fantastic people, and over the years has done a great job of servicing regional businesses around the UK. And I guess at the point I joined in late 2019, what was fascinating to me as a data centre person from outside is, wow, look at that business that's got data centres in places like Rotherham and Edinburgh and all these places that nobody else is at. That's fascinating for what's coming next in terms of the rollout. But actually at the time we were like a mid-market MSP. So actually at that point data centres and co-location was only about a third of our business. So what's really been going on for us over the last 5 or 6 years is a transformation of our business, which is I guess getting us focused. And I think we were a great business that probably didn't have a strong view of what our next step was, and I think that's what we've done together. So our current investor OnTan came in 21, and that's really kind of helped us with the investment to do this. So what we've done over the last 5 years or so is actively exit from things that we shouldn't be doing. Yeah. So I no longer have a field services team, no longer do public cloud, so retrenched from those things, but really invested very heavily in the infrastructure. So what we are as a business today is 14 data centres across the UK. We've invested heavily in those sites, both organically to fit out new capacity there to drive efficiency in the old sites, but also selected M&A to get us into new markets. So we've acquired 4 sites over my period here. Invested, really important part of this though, really invested in the backbone network that connects them all together. And that kind of turns it from being a portfolio of sites across the UK into a platform. Yeah. And so that's a modern software-defined network that means that wherever I am in there, I can connect across, and we've put in Megaport nodes, connectivity nodes, so it's a very rich ecosystem of connected access. And then we have an infrastructure as a service business that gives us kind of an ability to do some of those things. So as of now, the business is now 2/3 data centers, and so that's why you're seeing us come into the fore, because I think we're really clear what we are. We think we're doing something quite different, and I think we think we're the only true UK-wide platform.
I would agree.
And that's what's exciting about it.
And I've been watching Pulsant for years, and I've never really understood why it wasn't promoted more, and you sort of explained that very, very succinctly, because it is very well positioned for what analysts and the market has been predicting is going to happen over the next couple of years, and that movement back towards, we're hearing all, edge, neoclouds, etc., etc. And Pulsant actually has that infrastructure already in place that everyone is now trying to play catch up with. So where do you see yourselves going next, bearing in mind this focus on edge infrastructure and the fact that you've got those facilities already in place?
Yeah, and actually now we see that starting to arrive as opportunities. And probably when I first came into the company, some of the kind of mid-market peer group kind of almost looked at me sideways when I said, we're going to retrench from public cloud and we're going to invest in the infrastructure. And you can kind of see people looking at you, but actually now it's kind of so obvious why that was the right thing to do. So I think what's exciting for us is we're in a place where we have an ability to serve high density workloads across the UK in really well established sites that have rich connectivity. And there's a lot of noise. There's almost an arms race on who's got the biggest new build announcement, how many gigawatts is it, how many kind of hundreds of kilowatts can I get into the rack. The reality is that there's lots of real world applications out there that are operating at high by traditional standards, but very much in the kind of 10 to 50 kilowatts a rack territory.
That hasn't disappeared.
That hasn't.
It just doesn't get the headlines.
It isn't that it's not only that it hasn't disappeared, it's accelerating, because we're seeing a couple of things in here. So one is we are seeing repatriation of services out of cloud. And that's partly every business is thinking, where does the data sit? And then every business has had a penny drop moment that actually your data is really important and you need to know where it is and you need to know how you're protecting it. So there's an element of that. There's also an element of cost and performance in there as well. So not every workload should be going up. So we've got some reasonably sizable businesses that are bringing quite significant workloads back out, and that works really well for us. So so there's a real strong business case for that. But then the other aspect you're seeing here is part of the noise and hype cycle that's going on around the really big AI sites is it's causing supply constraints for NVIDIA kit. And actually, in reality, for a lot of the real world things that people are trying to do at the moment, you just don't need that. So actually what we're doing is working with clients to get to what they actually need to do things they want to do now, make a real impact on the business. So I'm quite happy that we're below the radar, because I think we're doing quite nicely, thank you very much, in terms of servicing that demand, and I think the things have swung back our way a little bit.
Yeah, no, I would agree, and actually that brings me really nicely onto a question I'm asking everybody today, and you've just summed it up. We talk about that supply side, and the supply side has had the headlines and the investments and the announcements. Nobody is talking about demand anymore. And that worries me. That's where, you get talk about an AI bubble, and I think there will be an adjustment at some point.
I go back to my starting point in my career journey was the bubble in the in the late 90s,
we
early 2000s.
We were both there, we witnessed it. So my personal opinion is that will be an adjustment. I don't think it's a crash or a bust. But I think we need to start talking about that demand again. And you've sort of alluded to that, but where do you see this enterprise AI demand coming from? And is it actually there at the moment?
I mean, I think there are things there, and I think so. A little bit. This ultimately comes around to. I mean, if you go all the way back to why was there a hiccup there in the late 90s, early 2000s? It wasn't that the premise of what was going on was wrong, but actually there are things that need to be
accelerated too quickly.
And also, in that case, it was constrained by the access networks, right? If your access isn't there, then you're not going to be doing high definition streaming video or kind of high definition, sort of online gaming if you're doing that over dial-up broadband. It just doesn't work. So
I've got that image of the sound in my head of dial-up broadband.
Exactly. So that was the constraint then. I think what it is this time is we've got a lot of excitement, and I mean AI is just bringing some fascinating possibilities and lots of personal productivity in there. but it's where does it come to the business case as well. And actually, there's lots of businesses trying things out at the moment, and we're doing that, and I'm sure we all have a dabble. And there are some real things within there, but what's the real business case in there? And ultimately, so you're kind of coming out of this cycle of kind of hype and into businesses trying to do real things, and what's the real business case in there? And I think that's where it is. It's not that it won't be right over the kind of the midterm, but it does mean that there'll be a natural correction, because I think we're getting a little bit.
No, I would agree with you there. So if we're sat here this time next year having the same conversation, what are we going to be talking about?
Look, I mean, I think we will still be talking about the same things. I think what's exciting, the industry has always been really important, and I think the UK has done a fantastic job of being a leader. I think we've always had some, great innovation, some great success stories across the UK over the years, and I think so. It's exciting still to be part of this and see this coming through. I think what we will start to see is a little bit more balance into it. I think we'll start to see many more kind of real world use cases, but I think there'll also be a kind of a realization that it's horses for courses a little bit. And I think as we're really clear that we service a part of the market that actually is trying to do some things, and hyperscale sites aren't the answer for everything. Kind of the as we think about sovereignty, as we think about people thinking about how they really do things with their data, then regional infrastructure, local infrastructure, UK sovereign infrastructure becomes really important. And I think we're quite proud of the fact that we operate around the UK, quite proud of the fact that our bigger offices in terms of where we have people are sat outside of the southeast, Gateshead and Edinburgh. And actually, I think that kind of bringing the technology, bringing the ability to transact out to where businesses are, so that they can deal with their data, deal with their applications, and not have to come to either an amorphous platform to do that, or they can still do that in a place where they know where the data sits, that the team in there speaks with the regional accent and understands kind of what makes business work. And I think that's important as well. So as ever, sometimes we get lost in technology, we get lost in investment. At the end of this are real world applications, real world businesses, and I think that kind of balance in there is important.
I think it's going to be a very good year for Pulsant. I look forward to catching up with you next year.
I'm sure it will be.
Rob, thank you so much for
Nicola.
your time. It's
Nice to catch up.
lovely to catch up with you again.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This is Nicola Hayes for Platform Insight.